Welcome into another Just a Minute with Austin Hannon. I'm Katie Wyndham. And Austin, we are now in the throes of fall camp for Alabama football. We've heard from Saban, we've heard from the coordinators, we're starting to hear from more of the players. But really, after hearing from Saban and new offensive coordinator Tommy Rees and talking about Alabama being spoiled with the depth at running back and talking to Tyler Booker, offensive lineman, about how this is going to be a run-first team, it got me thinking, will this team, this Alabama offense with the depth that has at running back, will they have two guys go over 1,000 yards?
I think it's a trick question. That might not be the answer you're expecting. I think they're absolutely going to have 2,000 total rushing yards as a team, and probably much more than that. I don't know if you'll just have two of the potential five that could play both do it, because I think it's going to be more of a committee thing. Obviously, like you said, we talked to Jase McClellan today, and he's going to be the leader of it. I mean, he's going to be the number one running back. Getting the bulk of the carries more than likely, as long as he can stay healthy. So I like his chances to get to 1,000 yards. I mean, he had nearly 700 yards last year, and that was in an offense that was primarily using Jahmyr Gibbs for every single thing that they could, and getting all the use out of his talent that they could. So when he's in there and he's getting, the 18, 19 carries like we saw him get against Ole Miss, against Kansas State, but down when Jahmyr Gibbs was kind of a little banged up, he did good stuff with the football. I mean, you remember that performance in Oxford? It was freezing cold that afternoon. And it seemed like down the stretch in that second half, they were feeding him the ball. And he had just under 100 yards rushing and kind of really helped Alabama get back in that game when the defense was able to finish it off. So I think he's a good pick to get 1,000 yards. But I think after that, we're going to see okay, 700 for this guy, 500 for this guy, 400 for this guy. Yeah, spread it out, because I think, obviously, Roydell Williams is a senior. He's going to get his carries. I've talked so highly about Justice Haynes. I think he's going to be one of those guys that can get 600 yards in his freshman year. And then Jam Miller, who is kind of under this, not in the spotlight as these other guys are, but a guy that's kind of been around longer than Justice Haynes. That in the spring game, he looked good. And in a couple of games last year against, obviously, the Austin Peay's of the world, he looked like he could run the football pretty good. So I like his talent. And I think if you give the ball all four of those guys, and if you even want to throw Richard Young in there, maybe get 100, 200 yards, I think they're definitely going to surpass that 2,000 yard mark as a team. Now, I don't know if they will get it just with two rushers over 1,000.
Well, I mean, if they don't get 2,000 rushing yards on the season, there's going to be a major trouble, especially I think depending on who the quarterback is, which that's kind of maybe a wrinkle in my answer. I was surprised. I was telling you before we recorded, when I looked it up, last time Alabama had 2,000-yard rushers in a season was Eddie Lacy and TJ Yeldon in 2012. The last time they came close to having two was in 2016 with Damian Harris and Jalen Hurts. Damian got over 1,000. Jalen was just under in the 950s, 960s mark. So, if Jalen Miller ends up being the starting quarterback this year, he's the guy that's going to run for a lot of yards.
I mean, that's a wrinkle in the question. That's a wrinkle in the question.
A quarterback and a running back. And I think with the depth Alabama has, it's kind of a double-edged sword, which things like this are arbitrary. Stats don't matter. You want to win the games. But it's more just, will there be two guys that kind of get the bulks of the carries? And with, the last couple of years, Alabama's offense has been more pass heavy, but listening to Tommy Rees talk and his offense, he's not trying to fit players into a system. He's more personnel driven, and the personnel this year is probably going to tend or lean more towards running the ball. So I think there's definitely two guys capable of getting 1,000 yards rushing in a season. It's just going to be kind of like what you talked about of, will there be too much spreading out, which I think is a great problem to have for Alabama, especially if all the guys can stay healthy, which is a big key, because 2 years ago, Alabama got pretty decimated at running back when Roydell and Jase both went down. Brian Robinson was hurt for a little bit. It was a little dire there when you had to go to Trey Sanders in the Iron Bowl, which ended up eventually working out for Alabama. But I think it's capable, but I think for me, the answer is contingent on maybe who's the quarterback going to be and how truly run heavy this offense is going to be. But that'll wrap up today's Just a Minute. We'll continue to have fall camp coverage for the next couple weeks until kickoff, which is now less than a month away. But that'll wrap up today's Just a Minute. Thank you so much for watching.